Now, Sports Central, we go for our next team prediction of this offseason, and this could be for the Florida State Seminoles, a team that went 13-1 overall in the 2023 season. An incredible season that had such a disappointing finish. This team was a true national contender pretty much the entire season, but they were the center around, I would say, the most controversial moment in college football playoff history, the way this team got left out of the college football playoff. We're going to be looking forward to 2024 here today. Moving on to the upcoming season, looking at the players this team is losing and returning, and predict their schedule top to bottom in this video. So with that, let's get started with a quick recap of 2023. Once again, we kind of recapped it already. Just an incredible season, getting to 13 wins, winning the ACC, and being a 13-0 team to be left out of the college football playoff as Florida State is. And the way this team played the entire season, I mean, they started the season with a dominant win over the 5th-ranked team in the country in LSU, 45-24. I think we all kind of knew right away after that first game that this team is going to be pretty dangerous in the ACC this season. They went on to have some really impressive wins. They beat Clemson on the road in overtime. They beat Duke, who was ranked 16th in the country at the time, by 18. Took care of Wake Forest, no problem. Beat Pitt, Miami, Florida on the road 24-15, and beat Louisville 16-6 for the ACC title. I mean, that was obviously, though, after Jordan Travis had gone down. And that was kind of the turning point of the season for Florida State, just because the committee and most that looked at Florida State just didn't see this team as the same team without Jordan Travis. And, I mean, I think everyone agrees that this team wasn't quite as good without Jordan Travis. But this was still a good football team that was worthy of being in the college football playoff last season. 13-0, won the ACC. I mean, you look at it from that standpoint, this team absolutely should not have been left out. But in the end, they went to the Orange Bowl, lost to Georgia 63-3. Even though that game was just, I mean, that was after just everything had gone down. And so it's tough to really look at that game as a legitimate bowl game. But regardless, still just such a good season for Florida State, getting to 13 wins. But looking forward to 2024 now with your roster preview. Jordan Travis obviously gone, and it's on to the Clemson/Oregon State transfer DJ Uiagalelei. He had a good season at Oregon State last year. He's been in the ACC before. He was with Clemson before Oregon State. I would say 2023 was his best year when he was at Oregon State. He never really reached that next level at Clemson, the level that Clemson was used to at the time. But I think for Florida State, this is a huge opportunity for him. I think he definitely takes advantage of it. The backfield, Trey Benson gone. Toafili's coming back. I'm really not too worried about this backfield, though. I got Roydell Williams coming in as well. Same with Cam Davis, along with Toafili. So that's definitely a good thing. I'm really not too worried about this backfield. But the receiving core is going to look a lot different. Johnny Wilson gone. Keon Coleman gone. Jaheim Bell gone. Got the second tight end from last season, Kyle Morlock. He was 4th in receiving on this team last season. So you got him coming back, and you bring in Malik Benson, but otherwise this receiving core is going to be a bit younger, a little bit inexperienced, maybe not quite as good in 2024. Honestly, though, it'll be pretty easy to improve on 2023 if they can, because, I mean, Coleman wasn't even that big of a standout. 660 yards, 11 touchdowns last year. Nothing really too crazy. But you look at the defense. The defense will be a lot different as well. That's honestly maybe the side that I'm worried about, just because it's going to be pretty inexperienced in many areas. Bringing a few players. I mean, this team did okay in the transfer portal for sure, but losing 2 on the D-line, 2 linebackers, 3 key players in the secondary is something worth being concerned about. But either way, this is still a talented team that's got a strong recruiting class, good in the transfer portal this year. Can this team be the ACC favorite in 2024? Very much a possibility. I mean, there's a couple of teams. Miami could be tough. Louisville could be tough. Clemson might be good. So there's a couple of teams that'll be up there as well. But Florida State might just be my favorite right now in the ACC as it is. And honestly, coming off of last season as well, I mean, they're going to want to make things right from last season and the way that it ended. So I think Florida State's in a pretty good position looking forward to 2024. Beer transfer portal and recruiting, mentioned Uiagalelei coming in from Oregon State. Rodemaker is off to Southern Miss. He was the second quarterback on this team last season. Mentioned Roydell Williams coming in from Alabama, definitely a guy worth keeping an eye on. This team actually brought in multiple key players from Alabama. Malik Benson expected to be a starter in the receiving core this season as well. So a couple of key guys there. Jalen Lucas coming in from Indiana. Lose Rodney Hill and Marcuston Douglas. Jalen Brown coming in from LSU for the receiving core as well. Ferguson coming in from Alabama for the O-line. You bring in Richie Leonard, same with Marvin Jones for the defense. But you do lose Gilbert Edmond, Malcolm Ray, and Dennis Briggs. You bring in another key Alabama guy here, Earl Little, for the secondary, and then same with Devontae Brown coming in from Miami. Recruiting-wise, 12th in the country, 3rd in the ACC, got 16 4-stars coming in, 7 3-stars overall. I would say the future is bright for Florida State. I think despite obviously a disappointing finish to last season, we have seen that this team can get back to a national level now. We know that's possible, and in the new ACC and with the shifting landscape of college football, it's going to be interesting to see how Florida State adapts. But this team is, I would say, in a good position looking forward to 2024. Got this team at an 8 on the future forecast. But with that, let's take a look at the schedule now. Looking forward to 2024 and this season. No big LSU matchup in week 1, but instead you got Georgia Tech there, and I think that's in Ireland there for that week 1 matchup. So, and Georgia Tech next season actually could be halfway decent. At least in comparison to where they usually are. So I wouldn't sleep on Georgia Tech there. That's not a game to overlook there in week 0. And then week 1, you got Boston College on a Monday night. So a couple of interesting games to start the season. Then Memphis at home, Cal at home. This is not a non-conference game now, obviously. Cal and SMU both being in the ACC this season. Got SMU on the road, then Clemson at home. Big matchup there. To start out October, then Duke after your second bye. Got Miami on the road. You got North Carolina and then Notre Dame. So that stretch is going to be definitely the toughest part of the season. There from the Clemson game down to the Notre Dame matchup on the road. And they got Charleston Southern, then Florida home to finish out the regular season. So looking at the first month or so, I would say Georgia Tech is a win. But this is a game, once again, not to sleep on. I would say Georgia Tech could be a bowl team this upcoming season. Once again. So, I mean, Georgia Tech kind of surprised in that last season, and I think honestly they could be even better in 2024. So it's Georgia Tech, but I do think you at least beat them, but it maybe is a closer matchup than some might expect. Then Boston College, Memphis, Cal. Take care of all these 3 teams. You got them all at home. Very winnable games against poor opponents. I think Cal is really going to struggle this upcoming season in their first year in the ACC. So you're 4-0 going into the SMU game. Think you take care of SMU, no problem as well. And then Clemson at home. I do think this is a closer game here, and this is obviously the one that everyone's got circled on their calendars. Uiagalelei once again taking on Clemson, his team that he was at before Oregon State, obviously. So that's going to be a fun one for sure. It is in Tallahassee as well, which is huge. I think Florida State gets a very memorable and fun win there against Clemson. That'll be definitely a fun matchup there. And then Duke on the road. I see this being a closer game here. I think Duke is going to take a step down for sure in comparison to where they were the last couple of seasons. Mike Elko obviously gone, and that's just going to be a much different team. So I think you do beat Duke, but on the road, sleepy environment on a Friday night, maybe a little bit closer than some might expect. And then Miami on the road. This is where I do have you taking a loss. Cam Ward and the Hurricanes could be legit this upcoming season. I don't think they'll be better than Florida State this year, record-wise, but I do think this is where you drop one to the Canes on the road. It's not really a tough place to play, but I do think Miami finds a way to get a huge win for them against Florida State there. So 7-1 going into November. Got North Carolina home. Do think you beat them in a close one. Notre Dame on the road is also an interesting game. I think the Irish next season could be legit for sure. It's kind of almost 2023 2.0 for Notre Dame, you could say. I mean, they had Sam Hartman, an ACC quarterback. They got Riley Leonard this season, also an ACC quarterback going in. And it's, I mean, I don't know if they'll be much better than they were last season, but that is still a tough place to play, and I think Notre Dame could be definitely a college football playoff contender this season. So I think you dropped that one as well, but I will say this. I mean, I got you beating Charleston Southern in Florida. Really no problem. So that gets you to 10-2 this upcoming season. I would say the ceiling is really high for Florida State. I feel like, honestly, the schedule sets up, there's not one game on this schedule where I think Florida State really has no chance. I could see this team going undefeated in 2024. I think that's the ceiling for this team, but I do think with some of the inexperience in some areas, it's going to be really tough to go 12-0. But it does help that most of the big games on this schedule are in the second half, so at least this team will be somewhat experienced later on in this season. But either way, I still feel like this team at least takes one loss at some point. More than likely it would be in South Bend against what should be a pretty talented Notre Dame team. But 11 wins very much possible. 10 or 11 wins most likely for this team in 2024. But let me know your thoughts and comments below on Florida State, especially if you're a Seminole fan. With that, I appreciate you guys watching as always. My name's Evan. This is All Sports Central. Stay tuned for more. We'll catch you on the next one.